Which leads us to item 10. Andrew, I'll get you to talk through this and then I want to say a little bit about it before we get any further.
Good morning. Oops. So, rates are a tax to fund public goods, so ultimately a decision on their application requires the exercise of political judgment. The report we've provided you with sets out some of the financial and economic matters that you may wish to consider in making a decision on this, and that reflects the tough financial situation the council is presently in that's been exacerbated by the storm events. At this point, I can update on some of the statistics about the properties that have been affected. As at Tuesday, there were 427 properties red stickered, 1,720 yellow stickered and 4,112 white stickered. The extent of damage to their properties and their habitability will vary even between these classifications, and the figures are constantly changing as properties are further reassessed or cleared for habitation and remediation occurs. We understand from the data we've got at present that most of the properties have managed to pay their rates, and of those that have struggled since the third quarter instalment, i.e. coinciding with the storm events, is only around 30 at this point that have missed from the third quarter onwards. Some others were having issues with their rates before the storm. So we haven't been applying penalties to the owners of red stickered properties if they've missed their rates, and we'll be getting in touch with them and ringing them up to make sure they know what financial support and rates payments are available. The properties that can't be remediated, they'll have their values and rates adjusted for the next financial year, and this is consistent with what we've always done. So rates are assessed at the beginning of the year and then they can be paid off over the year in arrears. We've had previous natural events, not quite on the same scale, but they affect an individual property owner in the same way. So there's some floods in the past and tornadoes, and this is how we've dealt with those properties in the past. We are recommending that red stickered properties have the second half of the year waste management rates remitted. If you can't inhabit the property, you can't use that service, and that's a service charge rate. It's only a small $40,000 cost, but can't use the service, so we're recommending their rates be remitted under the miscellaneous remission policy. If the governing body wishes to provide additional support to Aucklanders, the paper sets out 3 options you could consider. We could have a one-off grant for rates remissions for red stickered properties. That'd cost roughly $750,000. For yellow stickered, it would increase it by around another 2.7, take you to the 3.4 million mark. Or we could do the similar thing by using the miscellaneous remissions policy. However, our recommendation would be to make an addition to the emergency relief fund that could then be available to all Aucklanders, not just property owners, because it's not only property owners who've been impacted, it may be tenants as well. It would allow a bit more focus, it could cover any expenses, not just rates, and of course the property owners and tenants will have had many other expenses, and it allow a little bit of prioritisation for those potentially most in need, although it can't be a pure welfare mechanism. So those are the key issues we've noted in our report, and there I may up to you to consider those alongside other factors you may wish to bring to bear to the decision. And we're happy to answer any questions. Did you have anything you wish to add, Aaron or Peter?
Thank you, Andrew. I'll just cover off a couple of points. Obviously, we don't have any spare cash. We've just been talking about that. We know we've got the annual budget, and there's something in this paper to make everyone unhappy, I think. So we've been quite fair-minded with that. The real tension here is between the tax base integrity and our restrictions around that, and the desire to support those who are struggling and to support so in the best way. And so with that, we've presented the paper to put those options in front of you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. This paper raises some difficult issues, and I feel very sorry for Aucklanders who are still dealing with the devastation of the floods, including those with yellow and red stickered properties throughout our region, which includes those in the west, the centre, the north and the south of the region. We want to help them. I want to thank my Deputy Mayor, especially for her work on this rates remission matter on behalf of her constituents and others who have been red stickered. She's been very clear on this issue. The politics of this is difficult, and ultimately it is a matter for the governing body. You all need to make a call about how to balance the various issues and interests. For my part, I'm worried about the options presented in the paper for several reasons. Firstly, the focus on red stickered properties oversimplifies a complicated issue and isn't based on need. There are a lot of people in yellow stickered and white stickered properties that can't live in their houses. I visited a woman this week out in Swanson who is in a white stickered property, who is in a situation, and she is doing it really tough. There are some people in Shane and Ken's area saying they will never return to their yellow stickered properties. I'm worried about a situation where we give rates relief to one group, red stickers, but not to others in the same situation or worse. I note some people have red stickers have full insurance and are well looked after. Others who have white stickers are in a dire situation. Rates remission is the only available to property owners too, so the proposal is not really based on need. The problem is that it's proposed that we use a test that's designed for one thing, which is really about safety, for a purpose which it was never intended for, to decide who gets relief. So it doesn't seem principled or fair to pick out one grade of stickers, and as a person who has had experience elsewhere in placing stickers, that also is a judgment call. I'm also worried about the precedent we're setting in terms of our rating base, especially in relationship to options 2 and 3 in the staff report which apply rates remission. We don't provide rates remission for other people who cannot use their properties on a temporary basis. For example, if we declare a house to be dangerous, there's not rates remission. In those cases, if there is an impact on the property value, the change to rates comes the next year when there is a revaluation of the property, and a number of these will be valued significantly downwards. We don't have advice on the broader consequences of this precedent at our rating base, which is especially worrying regarding options which provide direct rates relief. Finally, and I hardly need to remind anyone here, but that we are in a difficult financial position and are needing to make some hard choices. Every dollar we allocate, we need to ask ourselves, is the best use of that dollar? So with all that in mind, I've put forward a solution up on the board there that I think is sensible because it enables relief to be provided based on need. We put forward an extra $1 million to be used for the fund because of the clear need we can see in our communities. It's a bit more generous than the $700,000 only for red stickers, but it enables it to be spread out based on need. And if we need to put up more at a later point, we can. I know there are other views and I'm open to those solutions. It's a tricky issue, but this is where I've landed and I've given it some thought. So I'd like you to think about that. I do have some questions about this already. I'll take them in order. The first one is the Deputy Mayor. Oh, first of all, oh no, we'll get it.
You move it, councillor Simpson.
At this stage, I'll move what's up on the board,
Councillor Simpson.
and it'll be seconded by the Deputy Mayor. So we'll open the discussion on this with the Deputy Mayor to start.
Thanks, Your Worship. My first question, I have just two questions. Why did we close the Auckland Emergency Relief Fund when it was oversubscribed and we still had a need for that funding?
Good question. I certainly didn't close it, and I'm still raising money for it. So I don't know who closed it or why.
That was my question.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, we closed the fund almost as planned. It was to be open for 4 weeks, which is typical for emergency relief funds. They've got a time and place in a response usually. So the first few days when civil defence centres and those kinds of relief are set up to help people. Then in the shorter term emergency relief funds like this one help people with those not immediate but shorter term needs, and then other temporary accommodation support and other MSD options are available for the longer term. So I think council relief funds have a short term purpose normally. So we planned to keep it open for 4 weeks. We did extend it for a further 1 week when the rates notices went out, just to help people that might have been experiencing hardship from that. But there was a time that it was due to close, and given it was so oversubscribed and we were planning to close it, there wasn't a good reason to keep it open for longer when we knew we wouldn't be able to pay out for people that were applying after that date, simply because there were such limited funds.
Okay, second question, Your Worship. Are you envisaging the $1 million extra increase to be funded by people who will donate money to that Auckland Emergency Relief Funding?
Well, that was what I had in mind, but it's been shut off. I mean, I'm attending a function on Friday which is designed entirely for that reason. And so I'll have to open a B division, and
I'm a huge believer of that. If you think you can get that, that's fantastic. I'm happy to support that.
Just further clarification, we closed it for applications, but it is still open for contributions. That they are trickling in. They're not as abundant as they were in the first few weeks, but they are still coming in, and we still know of some people that will be contributing.
Great. And my last question is probably to Andrew. I only saw this like 10 minutes ago, and I'm happy to support it, but I was going for C3 because it was, you know, in some respects it was an easy, one-off, rates remission, done, quick deal. One of the big problems we've had with council is people being told they have to apply, do something, it's too hard, they're stressed. Can you give me assurance that if this passes, it is a very easy option for red and yellow stickered property owners to get relief? Quick, easy, straight up.
We would ask our rates administration team to contact all the red and yellow stickered properties. The speed of the process would be an ease, something Anna's team would look to implement in a way that gave them quickly some information to help them to make the assessment. It would rely to an extent on people being a bit open with the council, but I'm sure it can be made relatively straightforward to provide information that would support decision making. But Anna,
This has to be administratively simple. The big criticism from ratepayers is that so far it hasn't been. So I just need assurance that this will be a simple process.
if I could provide a further comment on that. This is not a simple process. The earthquake relief fund, sorry, not the earthquake, the relief fund has been based on need, and that requires an assessment of it. So that would continue. It is doable, but it would be more easy to administer with a Q3, Q4 aspect dimension to it that characterises it a bit more easily. But the tension here is the same one as talked to earlier. The ability to provide targeted relief means that it will go to the people who most need it so that the funds go further, and then it's a political decision.
Reserve my right to speak. I'll let others ask questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Your Worship, and my apologies. I put the camera on just to sort of see what the background, and I can't change the filter, so my camera is off. So my humble apologies to you, Your Worship, and to the people there. The first question is, how many applications have we received since the Emergency Relief Fund was open and then closed just before 4 weeks?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we've had 2,539 applications as at the close date of the fund. And
second part, do you have a geographical spread of those applications?
Thanks for the question. They are spread all over Auckland. There's a lot in the regions where there's been really widespread damage in red and yellow stickered homes, as you would expect. And there's also a lot in the regions where there was also hardship being experienced prior to the flooding and cyclone, which you would also expect.
Yeah. And could that geographical spread be sent to me?
Yes, we can.
Your Worship, sorry, there's about two more and then that's it. In regards to the process, and that's based on the partai from the Deputy Mayor, that process, can a hard copy process be available for those seeking to put an application into the relief fund? I have spoken to the local boards that I in the Manukau ward, and some of that process, and I can confirm what the Deputy Mayor is saying, is one that people eventually give up. So can a hard copy be supplied for those, and then assistance given from either our libraries or service centres for them to assist in filling out that application?
Absolutely, and we are aware that we, for certainly the hardship fund earlier, we did ask a number of questions, and it was time consuming to fill out and complicated, especially for people that weren't in their homes. We just need to find the right balance with getting enough information to ensure that we can assess that there's hardship, but also make it as easy as possible for people to apply and get the help that they need. And libraries, and when we had the hubs, were really valuable to us in helping people fill in those applications, and we'll try to use the libraries and other places again.
Thank you. And last partai for me, Your Worship, is will the fund, and can that fund be opened up to white stickered properties who are still undergoing renovations? And I base this question on the whakaaro that His Worship the Mayor opened up with.
I hope it, based on need, it will allow for that, as was my intention. There are some white stickered ones where people are unable to live in them and are unable to get. We're also raising this with the Insurance Council to the extent that if it's white stickered, they don't seem to be available for alternative accommodation funding through their insurance. So there are a number of questions, and I think the other part about this is I'm hoping that the press who are present in large numbers will point out that for those who haven't yet made a donation to the fund, we would like them to do so. There was a lot of Aucklanders who weren't in any way affected, and I would like to remind them of their good luck. They should share that with those who didn't have a good thing in it. And so my understanding is that closing was a closing for applications or be reapplication, but I would still encourage, and I'm quite happy to do some media thing encouraging people, if you haven't got round to doing this, the problem hasn't gone away for a lot of people. The next person is Councillor Ferry.
Thank you, Richard.
Thanks. I've got a few questions, mostly because this is quite different from the resolutions from the report, and I'm kind of struggling to marry the two things up. So the questions I had from the report first. So are we differentiating between those who are red and yellow stickered during the flooding events and those who have had the impact from the cyclone, or are we treating both here?
We're treating both here.
Okay, thank you. We also, in the report, it refers a lot to whether things are habitable, but there's no mention of this only applying to residential. So is this for residential and business-owned buildings that are stickered, or is this only for residential?
My understanding is it's residential because you're not supposed to be living in your business, but it's about people who can't live in them in the moment, and I think that's my worry. And that's why I wanted to include white stickers, because there are some white stickered homes that the particular lady in Swanson, I would have yellow stickered her home, but
Sure. So can we get some clarity, please, on whether this is, because there are some business properties that are stickered. So can we get some clarity on does this apply just to residential? Because I think that puts quite a different complexion on it probably for some of us.
So our analysis is red, yellow, white. It didn't include the use that the property was being put to.
Right.
And I'd note that there may be some people who might be able to continue to work even though their property's damaged and they'll have an income stream. But if it's a business, like a dairy or a shop, then they won't be able to continue to generate income.
Okay, so I'm just quite...
well, I'm quite happy to have that warehoused amongst the council. I had thought it was residential, but if there's some reason for it to include that.
Well, I think it would be helpful, it's probably too late, but I think it would be helpful to have a breakdown of, like if there's 5 business properties stickered, but if it's half of them, then that puts potentially quite a different complexion on it, and we don't have that information in front of us. So I see Andrew's tapping away there. Maybe he might come to the rescue, and I'll ask another question in the meantime, if that's okay, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
The other thing is that the insurance aspect of these is quite different.
Yes.
Insured commercial buildings generally have an ongoing cover for income.
Yep.
What residential don't. And so on a needs-based, I think you'd end up with residential anyhow.
Possibly, but I think it would be helpful to have that clarified before we vote. So would we also, noting that in the report, it mentioned that quite a high number of people had paid their February rates who had red stickered. So, most red stickered have paid their February payments, noting that those came after the floods. So are we going to potentially take applications to refund people's rates if they go, well, actually, I know I paid it, but I am in hardship now? How does that work? And what do we do about people who were previously declined because the fund was oversubscribed and now we're reopening it? Are they able to reapply, and will they be reassessed? Thanks.
Given the wording of this resolution, it could be the case that someone has paid their rates, but they're in quite a difficult situation. They could ask, and then the grants team would consider the matters that they were putting forward and weigh it against the amount of money they had available and the situation others were in. Some businesses may have insurance, as you pointed out. Others may not have been covered for that element. And I know that presents a moral hazard problem for the council, However, that will be one of the factors that could be weighed in the assessment made by the grants team as to whether to provide them with assistance or not, in the same way that they were doing that with the earlier administration of the fund, which identified that it wasn't available for costs that would be covered by other sources.
And final question, where's the $1 million coming from?
Extra debt.
Extra donations.
I think it's important that we do know, like if this is going to be raised by donations, then it isn't a cost to council. But if it is debt, then it's a cost to council, and we have passed resolutions about no more discretionary spending. So, this does need to be resolved. I mean, I think ideally, yeah, we will get some donations, but we're competing with the cyclone at the moment in that space. It's going to be pretty hard to raise another $1 million from donations, I would have thought. Sorry, that wasn't a question.
Well, there's always a whole lot of tricky details, even in the best ideas. Shane Henderson.
Thank you, Chair. As you can imagine, I've got a number of questions. I just want to be really clear on this. How are people going to access this quickly and easily and on their rates bills right away?
Through the Chair, so the application system for the relief fund as it stands is an online application. We think we can simplify the form a bit so that we know if it's applying for this purpose. They don't have to answer quite so many questions, but we still do need to be able to assess need compared to other applications.
So if the council were to make a decision to provide support in one of the dimensions that's before you today, we would be making some media statements. I'm sure our communications team would use various channels to get it as widely out there as possible. We would write to the property owners. Now, obviously, you might not have your letterbox anymore if you've been red stickered, but I'm presuming there may be some of them will have arrangements in place to redirect mail, and we'd also, as appropriate, look to see how many we could ring up. So we'd make every effort to ensure people were aware that if they were struggling, that there was this avenue of further support.
So, rubber meeting the road. I've been emailed by West Aucklanders Flooding, as we all have, families that are directly impacted by this resolution that have been lobbying me for rates relief for a long time, that I raised this issue weeks ago. Some of the families are watching online. I need to actually advise these families what they are going to do. And the previous resolutions didn't require them to apply to a fund. And we're talking about families that are doing it tough mentally, that have welfare needs that are complex and ongoing. Do you think they can have difficulty applying? And also, what should I tell them? How should I tell them to apply?
So we will help them as much as it's possible to help them to apply. As Andrew said, we'll promote it. I think the rates team did get in contact with red and yellow stickered homes for the February rates bills, and we can certainly attempt to do that again.
I would just add to that comment as well. To give you an idea of the scale of the contact, it was 700 hours to contact just the red stickered individuals amongst a number of our admin team. So that's what I was talking about earlier about admin. I was talking about the council side of that. Ultimately, this is a political decision. We've provided some advice, and it comes down to what I said at the start: the tax system versus the desire to support, and whether you want to support in a targeted way, which will be complex, or in a more blanket way, which will be expensive.
Okay. And my follow-up question on that, what happens if it does get oversubscribed? How are we going to break that down by need, or is it first come, first served?
So ideally, we will be able to, if we keep the applications open for a shorter time period, like a week or 2 weeks, and get all of the applications in, then we can assess across. If we open it up for a longer time period, then we'd start assessing as they come in, so first in, first served. But we expect we can do some analysis around how much we expect to be needing to pay out to people. And try and distribute it equitably based on that.
Okay, and just last one, thank you, Mayor. I note in the resolution it still does say based on need for rates relief specifically. Can I just be crystal clear that the principle that were in the original resolutions was that it wasn't fair on people to pay rates on properties they couldn't live in, and is the same principle still applying with the new resolutions? I might just leave that there. Thank you, Mayor.
This is tricky. If you get into too much detail, we'll be frightened to do anything. Councillor Walker?
Sure, really just a very quick question for yourself, Mr Mayor. Given that you've identified the applicability of white stickered properties, would you consider adding white to the brackets where it says including?
Yeah, my point originally was for those who can't live in their homes due to the stickered process. And so if it was an amendment, that wouldn't worry me. I think we've got to trust our council staff to make value judgments here. And if we're going to force them into a written scope of detail at this stage here, you may as well stop trying to help people. I have great faith in them making sensible decisions on that basis. The particular lady I saw, and there was other around there, the white and yellow thing's a bit of a value judgment anyhow. And I'm sure I've been with Craig's guys, and it's tricky, that one. There's a few yellows that I'd have left white, and there's a few whites I'd have made yellow. That's a value judgment. We just have to ask people at some stage to use that. And are we wanting to do a good thing for some people in trouble, or are we not? See it that way. I'd like to help these people. Councillor Bartley.
I just wanted to know whether point 17 applies to these ones in red, or you're okay with what's proposed in red? Yeah, where you say officers do not recommend either of the alternative options for the reasons noted above. Does that apply to these ones as well?
That's right. If the council wished to do something to further assist Aucklanders to put some more money in, then our recommendation would have been to open the emergency relief fund so that it would be able to support any kind of expenditure, not just rates, and apply to both property owners and tenants based on the sorts of need elements that Anna's team's able to apply. However, so that will be our preferred option, but I think as both Peter and I said at the beginning, ultimately the decision on the course of action to take here is a political one, balancing the financial considerations and the other matters that you've discussed today. So our advice is in that context, looking at the financial and economic elements, and clearly there are other matters that it's appropriate for you to consider and not for officers. But we would see this, if we were to give a hierarchy of the options from the perspective we bring to it, we would have the one that we recommended, then this one, and then the other two that were there.
And just adding to that, if we look at this resolution here, the complexity is reduced if we're looking at habitability, with red stickered being a no-brainer, and yellow and perhaps others then coming back to that uninhabitable status. So that would help with the complexity of the administration.
And do we know, has any other option available to ratepayers been explored?
Yeah, so at the moment the council administers the rates rebate scheme on behalf of the Department of Internal Affairs. That's up to $700. We can work with the ratepayers to structure and spread out their payments over the year with weekly and fortnightly payments. We will remit rates penalties, and of course we're not applying any to red stickered properties, but if people with a yellow stickered property have got a payment plan in place, plus if the properties can't be remediated, we'll adjust their rates for next year, as we've done in the past for those affected by flood and tornadoes. And point them towards any other government assistance that may be available, both as a result of the storm event, but also the assistance that's always there through work and income.
Thank you. If I could just add, which may help with the debate, I have been texting with the MSD management, and civil defence payments have closed, and there is no option from MSD to help ratepayers pay for their rates.
I think MSD may on occasion provide some assistance with rates. Yeah, they do. I've got some first-hand knowledge of that.
The uninhabitable is the kind of word in here that's quite important here. It's about if you can't live in it. And it allows for the fact that there is a lot of movement between red, yellow and white. Some red ones are actually back in inhabitable. Some yellow ones, quite a lot of them are moving back to inhabitable, and the odd white one has yet to get inhabitable, so that it has some flexibility. It's about the ability to live in it, which is what was driving the concern of both myself and the Deputy Mayor. I have Councillor Turner, and then we'll have to decide whether we're going to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my mind's spinning after all that. I support you, the spirit of what you're trying to do. I support the simplicity of what the Deputy Mayor started talking about in the first place. I think we have to be seen to help these people as best we can. I would start at the point of saying that we can't give them a rate increase on properties that are of no value to them. Is it not simpler just to give rate relief for red and yellow? Remembering that they might be inhabiting some of these things again, but their material loss, their financial loss is what's really giving them a hard time, as well as habitability. And maybe put in something there so the staff have discretion, because I trust the staff and I agree with the Mayor. We try to drill down on this stuff so tightly that we'll get nothing done. I don't know if there's any help, but thank you.
That was a bit helpful. I just had one thing to add. The uninhabitable white stickered ones are actually in worse situation financially than the uninhabitable yellow ones, because the insurance in the uninhabitable yellow ones, if you're insured, will give you an accommodation, will fund alternative accommodation. But if you're white stickered and you can't live in it,
Okay.
you can't. Now, I'm raising that with the Insurance Council as well, but that was why it's the uninhabitability. There are people in yellow homes who can live in their homes. They're just a bit messy, but they really are still living in their homes, so they haven't actually suffered as much.
So, Mr. Mayor, I would add to that, in our previous slides, we were running behind our budget in a couple of places, so we did have underspend. So, yeah, because I'm worried about the debt issue too, but the best we can work out of this for everybody.
Mr. Mayor, could I just make a couple of points in relation to that?
You are the CEO after all.
Councillor, the cost for 2 quarters of the red stickered properties in terms of rates relief as identified in the paper is $740,000. The cost for rates relief for all yellow stickered properties is another 2.7 million. And a good proportion of those will be habitable. The complexity would arise here if we were to be required to apply some form of judgment as to affordability or hardship, because that would require the provision of information for us to be able to assess hardship. We will inevitably make judgments about that would be challenged, leading to more complexity And I would recommend we avoid anything that requires us to make a hardship assessment because of those complexities. The cost of including both red and yellow would be material, be over $3.5 million. While we do have some underspend at the moment, we also haven't reached our savings target for this year, so we've still got some work to do, and we've got to fund our recovery efforts as well. So we've got a lot of pressures on the budget. I would caution us against thinking that we've got capacity to be able to afford this without there being other impacts. My view on all of that is the less judgment we have to apply, the better. If we can use red stickered properties because they're uninhabitable, and that proportion of the yellow stickered properties that are uninhabitable as the starting point, that would be much clearer to us and easier to administer, and I think would target the right people.
Thank you. It makes me think that we can't be resilient when we're broke. It's very disappointing. Thank you.
They have to be uninhabitable. So that means that people are just in trouble financially and living in the house. It's not open to them. It's uninhabitable. I think that Andrew has a further brilliant clarification.
Answer to Councillor Ferry's question. Craig Hobb advised that roughly, because things are always moving, 16 red and 51 yellow stickered business properties.
Okay, I have been asked to add an E, which would request that officers ensure the process is as simple as possible for people with uninhabitable properties. So it is only for people who are uninhabitable property.
I wish to second, Mr. Mayor.
So the people who have put forward this, and was myself and the deputy, are happy with this. So it's been moved and seconded. If the staff would move away, we'll have any further comment, or otherwise we're going to make a decision, oddly enough.
Could I make one further clarification?
Please do.
Suggestion, Mr. Mayor, that we just include the words for quarters 3 and 4.
For quarters 3 and 4. That's a good idea too. Well, mate, I'm quite happy with that because we don't want to go backwards.
You know, with your E, are you able to add in the word need somewhere in there?
Word what?
Need, because your speech earlier was based on need. That's what won me over.
It's on C. It hasn't been removed.
Okay.
Okay. I'm aiming as much as I can without becoming a lawyer to aid it for the people in need for their rates payments who are in uninhabitable homes. Okay?
Okay.
So it's now available for comment if anyone who feels the irrepressible member for Henderson.
Irrepressible, I like that. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for working so hard on this, and the Deputy Mayor as well. I think this is an improvement once we iron out some of the complications involved here. And, you know, my questions are simply because my ward and my residents will ask me those questions, so I need the answers to go back to them. But, you know, I hugely support this initiative, and I actually really like that we've expanded the scope beyond red stickered into yellow stickered as well. As you've said, Mayor, a lot of the places in my ward that have been hit really hard actually were yellow, and in some cases even white stickered, and those ones are really uninhabitable. I'll draw councillors' attention to the emails that we've received through West Auckland is Flooding, both the group and one person from the group, which is one of my constituents whose life has been turned upside down, and we've got hundreds of these stories. So the little bit that we can do, I think we should do that. And the other thing, I think there is a valid point to be made that without setting a precedent, if you cannot enjoy your property, then charging rates on that property seems a bit unfair. It doesn't seem to be the Kiwi way. So by doing this, I think that we're telling people that are doing it really bloody tough and will need a hell of a lot more support than this, but we're giving that support to people through this resolution, and we're sending a message to the people that are doing it tough that the leadership of your city does back you and does want to help you. Thank you.
Councillor Dalton.
Thank you, and I'll be supporting this too. I think exactly what Shane has said, really. To be clear on how it's funded too, because we are struggling with OPEX, that is our weakness at the moment. But to debt fund this makes sense to me. I know there's some OPEX involved as we pay back the interest on it, but the debt funding of it is probably a critical point for me. I was listening to a lady on the radio on the way to work today, and she was from Titirangi, and she spoke about how she feels like she's been forgotten by the council in terms of her home. That she felt that they had just, when they were under Waitakere, that they felt they were cared for. She hasn't seen anybody, she hasn't seen any council officers recently. That she felt that if she lived in Oraki or Remuera, that she would have been fixed by now. That's the perception that she had. I think it's really important that they feel like everyone else is just getting on with their lives and they are still sitting in the stress and uncertainty and the unknown for the future. So I think based on need and based on the criteria that our CEO just described as well, the uninhabitable is really important, that there's a starting point for our staff to be able to go in and assess quite quickly, or have the conversations and assess quite quickly. But agreeing with Shane, you know, this is the right thing to do. It is the Kiwi way. And I hope that all of the people affected by the floods can find some peace as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dalton. The next up speaker is Councillor Filipaina.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm going to number 10 of the report, and they mentioned $3.4 million. And the interesting thing, our officers note that 3.4 million won't cover the full costs. Part 11 is another one, and we've had the speakers already say that we need to support our community, and this provides support to Auckland is based on need. To you and His Worship the Mayor, Deputy Mayor, are you willing to increase it by 3.4 as per the report?
No, but we've left it open so that at the end of this we can come back and reconsider it later on.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, because I think, yes, they do need support. And as a result, and the possibility that we can revisit it, even though it's by debt, and I recall the partai from Councillor Ferry. So got my answer in regards to the question, Your Worship, so thank you for that. I will be supporting this, and based on your comment, and more importantly, based on the people that came through to the CDCs, not only in West Auckland, in Albany, and in Mangere, but across the whole of Tamaki Makaurau. We had 8,000 people come through Mangere, and I can tell you that those 8,000 came across Tamaki Makaurau, and hearing their stories is the reason why I asked whether that emergency relief fund can be increased to the 3.4 as mentioned in the report. So thank you, Your Worship, and I will be supporting the recommendations. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor Foley, please.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I just want to tautoko everything that's been said by our colleagues, and I totally agree and accept that as a council, we obviously need to support our communities and families who've been most hard hit, and those who are in uninhabitable homes, and that, you know, I support that this is based on need as well. But I do also want to echo some of the sentiments made by the Deputy Mayor around the difficulty of the process. And we certainly experienced that earlier on with our communities here in Manukau and in Mangere in particular. And the issue around the difficulty of the application process was raised by the chair of the Mangere o Tahu local board as well. So I was pleased to hear from our staff that there can be a somewhat more targeted approach because we know who are the houses that have been red stickered and yellow stickered. We know, or we can identify those that are in an uninhabitable home, for example. So I'm just hoping, I'm going to support this recommendation, but I am hoping that we'll be able to support our staff to make those processes a little bit easier for our communities. And if that's through the libraries or through our civic centres, then that will be great. But I'm mindful that's putting a little bit more pressure on our staff to do that. But I'll be supporting the recommendation. Thank you. Kia ora.
Okay, we'll let the CEO work out how we do it, but we hear what you're saying. Councillor Simpson, please. Oh, Deputy Mayor Simpson, my horrible.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, councillors, Your Worship, like many of you, if not all of you, I have lived and breathed the impact of our recent weather events with many Aucklanders over the past weeks. They've left our many communities across the region devastated. No part of the city was left untouched, with those who avoided the worst of the floods often the ones hard hittest by Cyclone Gabrielle. As you know, as of last week, there were still 677 red stickered houses, and that's an estimated of 1,200 to 1,800 people displaced across the region with ongoing temporary accommodation needs. On top of that, 2,357 yellow stickered properties, and that's a further approximately 5,000 people. Pretty much 7,000 of our people unable to live in their homes, some sleeping in their cars as they try to keep looters away. That's 7,000 of our people stressed and battling the fact that they may never live back in the home where they lived at the beginning of the year. Not now, not sometime soon, maybe never. We cannot underestimate the impact of being stickered on these people. You've spoken to them. I've spoken to them. Their families, their older people, people who have lost their incomes because they worked from home. The stress and the trauma has been shared with all of us, and we know it's ongoing. So we need to act. I want to acknowledge the work that council staff have put into providing a wide range of support to affected residents, including arranging for food, water and financial assistance. We also took steps to ensure that any ratepayers who were not able to pay their rates were not charged penalties, and Your Worship, I really thank you for that support. However, I absolutely believe that as a council we could have done more and we could have done it faster. As soon as I became aware of the impact of the storms on some properties, I argued we should have been looking at rates for emissions for those made homeless. In my view, that was just the right thing to do. It was right and appropriate for council to show empathy and understanding for their plight. But it wasn't in a policy. There wasn't a rule for it. That didn't bother other councils. Both Hastings District Council and the Thames Coromandel District Council provided almost immediate relief to red stickered properties in the form of rates relief for the last 2 quarters. It shows what is possible when the focus is on the need of the residents. But I'm not going to look back. What we've got up here is a solution. It's probably the best of the options that would have got across the line by the sounds of all sorts of discussions. But most importantly, it provides an option for these 7,000 people. They're our people and we need to show we care. I do, and I know you do too. I strongly support E, as staff have to make this simple. And we have a choice today, and I say we need to help now. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Sayers, and then Councillor Williamson, then we vote.
Thank you, Your Worship. Property owners of inhabitable properties are unable to enjoy their properties or the use of their properties for an uncertain period of time. And many are feeling abandoned by the Auckland Council. The Council should be doing more, and it should be doing more faster. Various council services such as rubbish and recycling collection are also unavailable to them. And many of those affected Aucklanders are incurring additional costs or equivalent costs by having to find alternative accommodation. So both residents and ratepayers of uninhabitable properties will certainly value any rates relief, particularly at a time when they face those other additional costs. And they also include ongoing costs such as mortgage loan repayments and even insurance excess amounts. So I will be supporting this motion as it's been crafted over the debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Williamson, then Councillor Bartley.
Just very technical, that very last line of C, including red stickered and yellow stickered properties. I've experienced in the past where using the word including can get you into trouble because others who are not included will say it didn't exclude me. Do you mean red and yellow stickered properties only, or do you mean the uninhabitable, which is the next line up? Because if you mean the uninhabitable, I would get rid of what's in the bracket altogether. And if you mean red and yellow only, then you should put red and yellow only.
So it could be white.
Well, if that's the case, but you shouldn't put including like that because it doesn't exclude others. Take it out altogether, or it's going to be the test will be just uninhabitable, and put in yellow, red and white if it's all three and only that. But it's just, I've fallen afoul of the courts in some legal documents where we've used the word including, and it was argued that that doesn't exclude others.
Possibly a valid point. Well, I'll let Max consider that while we're hearing from Josephine Bartley.
Thank you. Yeah, I can understand what Councillor Williamson is saying. So, if the criteria or what we're wanting to do is assist those that are in need because their homes are uninhabitable, then you don't need the red and yellow stickered inclusion or the words of it. I am going to support this, and I am really comforted to hear that we're wanting to do something to help those in need. I am aware of people that are sleeping in their cars, not for fear of looting, although there have been some of those, but because they have no option of where to stay with their children, so they're living in their cars. I am also mindful of families who are continuing to pay rent on properties that are unlivable, so I would not want to see those landlords try and exploit the goodness that we're trying to do here for their own monetary gain. So I am reassured by the fact that this is going to be targeted at those in need. So yeah, that's my main comments around this. So I am hoping that there will be some kind of assessment as to need, given that we are all talking about how if we're going to spend money, we want to spend it wisely. So I take on board what Councillor Dalton said, that this is going to be debt funded. But yeah, I appreciate that everybody is struggling, that things are really bad out there, and we don't want our Aucklanders to feel like we've forgotten them. So I will support this. Thank you.
Righto, thanks. We've added in white stickered. It's the uninhabitable piece that we're after, and there won't be many white stickered houses that are uninhabitable.
My problem still exists. Why would you have including at all? Just take that last line off. It means anybody that's got an uninhabitable property and is in need. That's what you're saying. If they're red or they're yellow or they're white, well, what's the point of that last line?
Because there are a lot of houses which are none of those things.
Okay, well then you should say only red stickered, yellow stickered and white, and not have including.
Okay.
The including's you... No?
Well, Max is, who's my resident legal.
No, okay.
Can I mean...
All right, I'm shutting up.
I will accept debates on the position of the comma in the second one as well, if you like. We've had a good old thrashing about this here. I'm now going to propose, with what you've got in front of you, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary? Bingo. Thank you very much. Unanimous.